Right. Hello. Ooh, hang on. I think you can hear me but not see me. I think you've got a beautiful still image of me there. Let me just fix it. Deactivate. Actor. Don't know why I'm reading it all along with it. Ooh, that looks prettier. Okay. That's better. Just wave your hands and the, the light conditions improve. Hello everyone, I'm slightly early because I'm aware there's going to be the minute silence at 11 o'clock, isn't there? So I'll stop just before then. And I know that I waffle, so I thought I'll probably waffle at the start for a minute or two. And then anyone who joins at past can pick it up straight away. Now, before I go on, like I said, there's about probably 2 readings of this to go. I'd have thought maybe 3 at a pinch. But I've been getting my brain round how to do Inspector Calls because it's weird having lots of characters. I've never actually read an Inspector Calls out loud. Pupils always do it in the class. So I think I've cracked it. So I'll give you a sneak preview of what I've planned. These aren't finished yet, but I'm thinking of having indicators held up to show which character's talking. So there you go. My Inspector Calls indicators. Bit of Eric and Gerald there. Not bad. I'll save the worst till last. Mr. Burling and the Inspector. There's what's her face? You know, Sheila. Had her hair too modern, haven't I? Might have to redo her. Edna. Oh yes, proud of that one. Now, but I also learned something, which is I'm not very good at drawing anyway, but I'm really not good at drawing old women. So my first attempt at Mrs. Burling was horrendous, and my second attempt was Stan Laurel in a wig. Look him up, history fans. So I may have to redo her, I think. Anyway, there you go. Okie dokie, it's past, let's get reading. Kind of looking forward to doing that. That's sad, aren't I? We knew that already. Let's just see, are any comments? Right, hello, Miss Tompkins. Oh, nice one, well done. Oh, hello, there's a few more people. Hey, Alfie. Johan, yeah, well, thank you very much, Johan. They are beautiful works of art, aren't they? Right, so let's get cracking. As we know, yesterday, the terrible thing happened, didn't it, when Larry LaSalle raped Nicole, and Francis is broken by this. He's betrayed Nicole. He has that encounter with her where she's understandably angry the next day, and he actually goes on the top of the church thinking about killing himself, but decides not to, and instead fakes his birth certificate. He's only 15 and joins the army. So here we go. Oh, Dylan, if you're there, look, got rid of the pop filter. See, I do listen. fair point. I was going a bit belt and braces, wasn't I? Okay, get this for an opening sentence for today. I always thought I'd spot Larry LaSalle on 3rd Street. Would see him striding along like Fred Astaire, bestowing that movie star smile on the people he met. I would shadow him through the streets and follow him home, note his address, and then return later with the gun in my pocket, ready to do my job. Instead, I learn of his return from, of all people, Mrs. Belander, as I come back from another round of searching the Frenchtown streets. I overhear her talking to a neighbour as they stand on the back porch. Mrs. Belander is folding clothes. She's drawn off the clothesline that links her house with the 3-decker next door. The neighbour is Mrs. Agnew, a big woman with flushed cheeks and bulging eyes. They're talking in French and I linger nearby, listening like a spy. They don't realise that I understand most of what they're saying as they talk of the weather, and then of old Monsieur Tardier, who likes to pinch women on the derriere when they pass. I'm stunned when I hear the name of Larry LaSalle on the lips of Mrs. Agnew. The French language spoken by Canadians passes quickly on their tongues, almost like music, sometimes so quickly that the words are lost as they cascade in the air. I draw closer to catch every syllable and miss some of them, but hear enough to make my heart begin to race and my flesh to grow warm. I'm concentrating so hard that a headache begins, a throbbing pain above my eyes. What I obtained from Mrs. Agneau's quick tongue is that Larry LaSalle has returned to Frenchtown. He walks slowly, as if his legs hurt. He's living in the second floor tenement of a 3-decker owned by someone whose name I don't catch, on the corner of 9th and Spruce. Which corner? Then Mrs. Belander, bless her, asked a question I myself want to ask. The greenhouse, cheap paint, bought discount, fading already. But I don't hear the rest of her description. I've heard enough. Larry LaSalle has returned to Frenchtown, and I know where to find him. He's it's ironic. Remember, he set us up at the start for this, saying that he can't speak French, but he can understand it, so he's able to listen to this, and she doesn't realise that he's listening. Okay, so Larry LaSalle is back in town. Young Castaneda, I don't know what Sir Give Foods means, I'm sorry. Right, we'll carry on. The gun is like a tumour on my thigh as I walk through the morning streets against the wind that never dies down. April sunlight stings my eyes, but the wind dissipates its heat, blustering against store windows and kicking debris into the gutters. At 9th and Spruce, I pause and look up at the 3-decker and the windows of the second floor, where Larry LaSalle can be found at last. Does he suspect my presence here on the street? Does he have a premonition that he only has a few minutes left to live? I'm calm. My heartbeat is normal. What's one more death after the others in the villages and fields of France? The innocent faces of the 2 young Germans appear in my mind. But Larry LaSalle is not innocent. The steps leading to the second floor are worn from use and age, and I think of all the people who've climbed stairs like these, who've worked in the shops and come home heavy with weariness at the end of the day. As I stand at the door of Larry LaSalle's tenement, I touch the bulge in my pocket to verify the existence of the gun. The sound of my knocking is loud and commanding in the silent hallway. No response. I wait. I rap on the door again, hand clenched as a fist this time. Come on in. Door's not locked. Larry LaSalle calls out. That voice is unmistakable, a bit feeble now, yet still the voice that cheered us at the rec centre. Hesitant suddenly, uncertain, his voice giving reality to what I must do. I step into the tenement and into the fragrance of pea soup simmering on the black stove, steam rising from a big green pot. He's sitting in a rocking chair by the black coal stove and narrows his eyes, squinting to see who has come into his tenement. He's pale, eyes sunk into his sockets like in the newsreel at the Plymouth, and he seems fragile now, as if caught in an old photograph that has faded and yellowed with age. His eyes blink rapidly as if taking quick pictures of me. Is there a glimmer of fear in his eyes? My heart quickens at the possibility. Francis Cassavant, I announced. It's important for him to know immediately who I am. I don't want to waste any time. Ah, Francis, he says, his eyes flashing pleasure because he doesn't sense my mission. Come in, he says, the old enthusiasm back in his voice. He rises slowly from the chair, steadying the rocker as he lifts himself up. As he holds out his hands in greeting, I go forward to meet him. We shake hands. At the last minute, when it seems we might embrace as old friends and comrades, teacher and pupil, I pull away. His white hands clutch the air before he clasps them together and settles back into the chair. Sit, he says, indicating the chair next to the window opposite his own. Take off your jacket, he says. Your Red Sox cap too, and your scarf. I don't move. I don't take off anything. I don't plan to stay long, only long enough to carry out my mission. Don't be afraid to show your face, Francis. That face, what's left of it, is a symbol of how brave you were, the silver star you earned. You earned a silver star too, I say, having to reply, and marvelling again how Larry LaSalle was always one step ahead of us, just as he now knows about my face and the silver star. He shrugs, sagging in the chair, sighing as if tired suddenly. Good of you to visit, he says, smiling the old movie star's smile. Makes me remember the good old days at the rec centre. Those were good days, weren't they? That table tennis championship? What a great day for you, Francis. A deep sadness settles on me as if winter has invaded my bones. You made it possible. You let me win. You missed a point, Francis. You deserved to win. It was more than a game, more than a score. You played like a champion and deserved a trophy. Why did it have to turn out like this? But those days are gone now. The war is over. Everything's different. Not only the war, but everything, he says. Lifting his hands, he studies them, and looks down at his body. He rubs his thighs. No wounds that you can see, Francis, but I'm worn out. They called it jungle fever at first, but I don't think they really know what it is. Maybe your sin's catching up with you. And you, Francis, will you be okay? Will you heal? Be like new again? Yes. I don't feel like going into all the details or telling him about Dr. Abrams. It's not going to happen anyway. Remember his mission, kill Lila Sal, then he'll kill himself. Silence falls in the room and he shifts his body in the chair. I touch the gun in my pocket to remind me of my mission. How'd you get in the army so young, he asks, focusing his eyes on me, the way he did in the old days, as if my words were the most important he'd ever heard. I tell him about the forged papers. They were taking anybody with a heartbeat in those days. Just a kid, shaking his head, his eyes alight with admiration. And you became a hero. I'd always wanted to be a hero, like Larry LaSalle and all the others, but have been a fake all along. And now I'm tired of deception and have to rid myself of the fakery. I look away from him, out the window at the sun-splashed street. I'm not a hero, I tell him. Of course you are. I heard about you, read the stories in the newspapers. Know why I went to war? Why does anybody go to war, Francis? I went to war because I wanted to die, lowering my voice as if in the confessional with Father Balthazar. I was too much of a coward to kill myself. In the war, in a battle, I figured it would be easy to get killed, and I wouldn't be disgracing my father and mother's name. I looked for chances to die and instead killed others, and 2 of them were kids like me. You saved your patrol, you fell on that grenade. When I fell on that grenade, I wasn't trying to save those GIs. I saw my chance to end it all in a second. But a freak accident happened. A face got blown off and I didn't die. His voice is a whisper. Why did you want to die, Francis? Don't you know? Stunned by his question, then realizing that he hadn't seen me that night. Nicole Renard. His mouth drops open, and he flinches as if reeling from an unexpected blow. I stayed behind that night. My own voice is now a whisper. I heard what you were doing to her, and I saw her afterward. Those eyes of hers and what was in them. Shaking his head, he says, you wanted to die because of that? I still want to die. What you did to her, and I did nothing. Just stood there and let it happen. Francis, you're too hard on yourself. You didn't do anything you should feel guilty about that should make you want to die. You couldn't have stopped me anyway, Francis. You were just a child. So was she. My lips trembling. A long sigh escapes him. Is that why you came here? To tell me this? I take the gun out of my pocket. Here's why I came. I aim the gun at him, my finger on the trigger. But my hand is shaking, and my caves are running, and I am suddenly overwhelmed by the knowledge of what I'm about to do. Why has it come to this? You could have had anybody, I say, my voice too loud, booming in my ears. All those beautiful ladies at the dance that night. Why Nicole? The sweet young things, Francis. Even their heat is sweet. Sweet young things. Had he done it before? How many young girls had been invaded by him? I shake my head in dismay. Everybody sins, Francis. The terrible thing is that we love our sins. We love the thing that makes us evil. I love the sweet young things. That isn't love, I say. It's all kinds of love, Francis. Then didn't you know that we loved you? I say, you were our hero. Even before you went to war, you made us better than we were. He sighs, his lips trembling, and his voice trembles too when he asks, does that one son of mine wipe away all the good things? That's a question you should ask Nicole, I say, my eyes measuring him. Until this moment I haven't planned where I'll place the bullet, whether to aim for that spot between the eyes or for his chest, his heart. It isn't a question of aiming, really, not at this distance, only desire. The desire to avenge what he did to Nicole and to the other young girls, now that I know about them. He waves his hand at me as if dismissing the gun in my hand. Know why I'm sitting in this chair, Francis? Barely stood up since you came in. My legs are gone. He gestures towards the table, and I notice for the first time the aluminium crutch leaning against the table. No more dancing for me, Francis. No more sweet young things. No more anything. Am I supposed to feel bad for you? Don't look at me like that, he says, turning his eyes away from me. If I wanted one thing, it would be to have you look at me again the way you did at the rec center, when I was the big hero you say I was. But it's too late, isn't it? I'm tired of this talk, impatient to do what I've come here to do. Say your prayers, I tell him, just as I've rehearsed those words so many times throughout the years. I've decided to aim for the heart after all, to shatter his heart the way he broke Nicole's and mine, and how many others. Wait, he calls out, reaching towards the small table next to his chair and a cigar box on the table. He opens the box and withdraws a pistol like my own, a relic of the war. I flinch, my finger agitated on the trigger, but he places the gun in his lap, cradling it in his hand. You see, Francis, I have my own gun. I take her out and look at her all the time. I place her against my temple once in a while. I wonder how it would feel to pull the trigger and have everything come to an end. He sighs and shakes his head, then nods toward me. So lower your gun, Francis. One gun is enough for what has to be done. He sees the doubt in my eyes and in a swift movement removes the magazine from his pistol. Empty, he says. You're safe, Francis. You're always safe with me. So put your gun away. Whether you know it or not, you've accomplished your mission here. You couldn't have killed me anyway, in cold blood. We stare at each other for a long moment. Please, he says, and his voice is like the cry of a small child. I lower the gun. I remove my finger from the trigger. My hand trembles. I put the gun back in my pocket. Go, Francis, leave me here. Leave everything here. The war, what happened at the rec center, leave it all behind with me. Suddenly I only want to get out of there. The aroma of the soup is sickening and the tenement is too warm. I don't want to look into his eyes anymore. My hand is on the doorknob when he calls my name. I open the door but pause, making myself wait. But I don't look at him. Let me tell you one thing before you go, Francis. You would have fallen on that grenade anyway. All your instincts would have made you sacrifice yourself for your comrades. Still, trying to make me better than I am. I close the door, my face hot and flushed under the scarf and the bandage. The coldness of the hallway hits the warmth of my flesh and I shiver. It seems as if I've done nothing but shiver since I returned to Frenchtown. His voice echoes in my ears. Does that one sin of mine wipe away all the good things? I go down the stairs, my footsteps echoing on the worn staircase. Downstairs at last, after what seems like a long, long time, I pause at the outside door. The sound of a pistol shot cracks the air. My hand is on the doorknob. The sound from this distance is almost like that of a ping-pong ball striking the table. So, Francis does get to meet Larry again. And as Larry puts it, he does achieve his mission, but not in the way he expected. Because Larry kills himself. That little scene there is sort of strangely reminiscent, well, not strangely reminiscent, deliberately reminiscent in parts to the horrible rape scene, isn't it? Francis waiting at the exit, just as he does there. I pause at the outside door. The noise he makes, like the cry of a small child, and Francis says he hears the cry of Nicole like a small animal. There are little echoes. The key thing, I suppose, here, right, okay. I've said a lot over the course of this and of Mice and Men about this idea of speculative language. That in English, you don't have to state definitely something. You can speculate, you can have your own opinions as long as you back them up with evidence. Remember, peeing? Yeah, make a point, give evidence, explain how your evidence proves your point. Now, Heroes is fantastic for it because one of the main themes, of course, is what is a hero? And so you can speculate over it. I'll give you some ideas now and some thoughts to ponder on, but the key thing isn't that you replicate what I think or what I say. The key thing is that you're able to come to your own conclusions and justify them with evidence from the text. So, for example, that massively quotable bit, does that one sin of mine wipe away all the good things? And that's an interesting one to speculate over for you, isn't it, if you're writing about it? Because the fact is, I mean, my God, he's terrible. And it sounds very much like Nicole's not the first. Remember there was that thing earlier in the book where they said there were rumours that he'd been a star on Broadway, but then he'd had to leave suddenly. Well, maybe we know why now. So, okay, he is a predatory paedophile. That is utterly horrendous. Does that one sin wipe away all the good things? Well, again, I'm not going to get into a moral argument here so that you can clip little bits out and put it out of context. But, I mean, yeah, it does, because he's a terrible person who does terrible things. He surrounds himself with children. Okay, is that then because he wants to help them, or is it because is he essentially grooming them? Is he gathering children for him to make his selection? It's a horrible way of putting it, but it's what he seems to have been doing. On the other hand, he did genuinely do amazing things for kids. Imagine if he didn't do the terrible thing. The difference he made in Francis's life, the opportunities he gave to Nicole, the way he got the shy girl performing on stage, the bully to perform on stage, the way he could pick people's talents and draw them out. He spots that Francis will be good at table tennis by looking at how he moves. Wow, that's amazing. He's amazing. He's fantastic. Were it not for that, he would be an incredibly gifted person. His consideration for people's feelings. When Francis is embarrassed, so he stays at the back and he shouldn't be there. But Larry realises why he's there and doesn't bring him forwards in the calisthenics class. Larry has done amazing, wonderful, wonderful things that have made massive differences to other people's lives, and he has saved soldiers' lives. And he's amazingly gifted and gives that gift to help others. But does that one terrible thing wipe all that out? I'm not saying yes or no. I'm saying that's something to speculate over if you're writing about it. If you want, put both sides of the argument. Yeah, remember, you're not having to find a definitive answer, but you've got to back it up with evidence. He also, again, as Francis says, makes Francis feel better about himself again, even though he's gone there to kill him, which is quite something, isn't it, really? He says to Francis, you would have jumped on the grenade anyway, you're that sort of person. You weren't going to kill me, you can't kill me in cold blood, you're not that sort of person. So even in this situation, he validates Francis and makes him see what he truly is. So I think that it's right. Francis is very negative about himself, understandably, after feeling he betrayed Nicole, and then hasn't got the guts, as he puts it, to kill himself. So, yeah, he's basically validated Francis again, hasn't he? He's stopped him from the sin of murder. I mean, there's a lot of religious symbolism in this, isn't there? Yeah, the standard. And you do this in RE, don't you? The standard attitude towards war in religion and Christian religion is that killing is permissible in the context of a war, but not in cold blood, not walking into an old man's house no matter what he's done and shooting him while he sits there. So he saved him from that sin. And there's something else I was going to say about that, and I've completely forgotten what it was. Oh, yeah. No, hang on, no. Oh, it'll come back to me in a second. Oh, no, I don't know. So, Francis is validated, even at the end, by Larry, who reminds him of how good he was. That's what I was going to say. He points out to him, he says, you couldn't have stopped it anyway. He said, you're just a kid. If you had stayed, if you had tried to stop me, you wouldn't have been able to. So he even gives him sort of, I don't want to say an excuse, but a justification for not staying and stopping it all. Right, I said I'd stop before 11. I think there's a section here that I reckon I could just get through. It's not a key section, so I don't need to talk about it much afterwards. And then after that, I'll join you tomorrow. So let's get through this last part. The sound of the doorbell echoes unendingly through the long corridors of the convent. Waiting, I step back and look at the faded red brick exterior of the building and the black forbidding shutters at the windows. So straight away, he has not killed himself immediately. He has gone to a convent, which we know has a link to Nicole. So it looks like he is... Well, he's not carrying out straight away what he was planning to. On summer evenings, we played our games, buck, how many fingers up, and kicked the can in the schoolyard until a nun threw open the shutters, clapped her hands, and sent us scurrying home in the gathering twilight. The door opens and an old nun with transparent skin looks suspiciously at me. I'm accustomed by now to the shock my appearance gives people, and try to make my voice gentle and unthreatening. Is it possible to speak to Sister Matilde? I'm one of her former pupils. She studies me for a long moment with her pale blue eyes. Jen gestures to me to step inside. She ushers me to a small room to the right of the foyer. The familiar smell of strong soap and cabbage cooking hangs heavy in the air. Nodding towards one of the two straight-back chairs near the window, she waits until I sit down before turning away. She hasn't spoken a word. Her footsteps fade as I settle myself in the chair, wondering if I'm on a futile errand. I'm here because I remember how often Nicole visited the nuns in the convent, strolled the grounds of Sister Matilde, and knitted socks and scarves for servicemen with the sisters. I wonder if Sister Matilde might know what happened to Nicole or where her family moved. The whisper of starched clothing and the clump of heavy shoes announce Sister Matilde's arrival. As she enters the room, she touches the long black rosary beads that dangle from her hip to the hem of her long black skirt. Her skin is as white as the starched wimple framing her face. She regards me curiously and I take off the Red Sox cap. Francis Cassavant, I say. Of course, Francis, she says, a smile lighting up her eyes. She seldom smiled in the classroom. I hear you served your country well. You have made us all proud. She sits on the edge of the chair as if being a nun does not allow her to sit comfortably. We still pray for our men and women in uniform every day and night. She asks about my wounds and I tell her as little as possible. She says she will offer up special prayers for me. Finally, a question appears in her eyes. Nicole Renard, I say. I've been wondering where she is and what she's doing. Her family left town while I was away. Do you know where they went, sister? Nicole, yes, she says, nodding her head. You were friends, n'est-ce pas? I nod in return, my interest quickening. Ah, Nicole, she says, clasping her hands and then unclasping them. A good girl. Smart. A secretive girl, too. But then, we all have secrets, eh, Francis? I shrug, not daring to say anything. A thought strikes me. Has she gone away to become a nun? I ask. The possibility dashes my hopes of ever seeing her again. She's gone away, yes, but not to become a nun, Sister Matilde says. Life is not that simple, Francis, and neither is according to God. She picks up... glad that my face is behind the scarf and the bandage so she can't see my relief, I plunge ahead. Do you know where she is, sister? She picks up the beads of her dangling rosary and begins to draw them through her fingers. Her family has returned to Albany. I don't think Mr. Renard was happy in his job here at the comb shop and went back to his old one. Nicole was glad to go back too, I asked, then conscious that I'm pressing. Do you think it might be all right if I visit her? You know what, I'm going to stop there. There's a tiny bit left, but I'm conscious of the fact it's, 10:58. And with a minute's silence, I don't want to obviously overcut that. So I'll cut it short now. But I'll be back 10:30 tomorrow. And hopefully be able to finish this book off. See you then.